They laughed when I stood there frozen while every seat in the room was taken. Even my best friend turned away like she didn't see me. The popcorn passed, over my head. The whispers flew. She doesn't belong here. She's just background. I stood still invisible. But what they didn't know, the deed to that velvet-curtained theater already in my name. And that night, I walked backstage and handed them the eviction notice. My name is Ava Montgomery. I was born and raised in Savannah, Georgia. The air here always smelled like blooming jasmine and damp secrets, but I grew up on stages, not streets. My first memory wasn't of my mother's lullaby. It was the creak of an old theater floorboard and the soft flicker of a spotlight warming my face. I wasn't the kind of girl people remembered. I was the girl sweeping the confetti after the final bow, the one taking notes in the back row, not selfies on stage. They said I was dedicated, which was just another way of saying, she'll do all the work and none of the glory. But I didn't mind. Not then. Because I believed that someday my moment would come. For years, I volunteered at the Lyric Star Theater. It was a beautiful aging venue on River Street, with velvet seats that squeaked and chandeliers that sparkled like fallen stars. I painted sets, took tickets, even unclogged toilets during a midnight flood. They never paid me, but I stayed, because that place felt like home. And then came Lana Reeves, the golden girl, the type who always got the lead role, even when she didn't know her lines. We met in college. She was all sparkle and spotlight. I was grit and ghostlight. But somehow, we clicked. She said we were soul sisters, said she saw something in me. I helped her write her first script, edited every scene, suggested her best jokes, even designed the poster for her indie film premiere. And when she said, "Ava, you have to come, it's at the Lyric," I felt something in my chest crack open. Because finally I'd be part of the story. The night of the premiere, I wore the only nice dress I owned, curled my hair, even put on lipstick. I showed up early. The marquee had her name in gold letters, written and directed by Lana Reeves. I stood in the lobby, hands trembling, ticket email ready on my phone, smiling at the ushers I used to work beside. Then one of them stepped forward. A new guy. Didn't recognize me. He looked at his clipboard, then at me. "I'm sorry," he said, "you're not on the list." I blinked, laughed softly. This must be a mistake. Lana invited me. He cut me off. No plus ones allowed. I stared at the doors. They were already opening. The crowd flooded in. People I knew. People I used to clean up after. They filed in like royalty. And me? I stood in the corner, smiling like a fool, still holding my phone. Then I saw her Lana laughing in a cloud of perfume and cameras. I waved. She glanced at me, then looked away, like she didn't know me, like she didn't see me, and the usher turned to the next guest. That moment, I swear, I felt my chest cave in, but I didn't leave. I stood by the wall. The usher gave me a pity look and said, "Look, just wait until everyone's in. Maybe there'll be a seat left." So I waited. The theater filled, laughter, music, applause, all through the glass doors. Finally, he motioned to me. "Okay, go Anita, but standing room only." I nodded. Walked into the place I once called home. There were no seats. Not one. Not for me. And as I stood in the back, arms folded, heart splitting, I saw Lana raise a toast on stage. "This project was built by love," she said, "and community," and every person clapped, except me. I stood there and in silence, with nowhere to sit, but I wasn't angry yet. Not yet. That came later. That came when the popcorn passed over my head. That came when someone whispered, "She's just the girl who used to clean the place." That came when I realized they didn't forget me. They erased me. But that's okay. Because the stage they stood on, it belonged to me now. They just didn't know it. Yet. There was something humiliating about standing in a place you used to clean and realizing even the dust had more of a seat than you did. I stayed against the back wall. The lights dimmed. The screen flickered. And that was my cue to disappear. But I didn't. I watched Lana smile like she'd never known pain. Watched the audience laugh at jokes I'd helped her write. Watched them clap after scenes I storyboarded on napkins at midnight. And when the credits rolled, not a single mention of me. Not even a thank you. The lights came on. Everyone stood. They hugged. They took photos under the marquee, and I tried to inch closer just to say hi, just to remind them I existed. Lana saw me coming. She looked me dead in the eyes, and then turned to talk to someone else. That was the first time I felt it, not sadness, not even anger, but the cold steel of clarity. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was a message. I wasn't welcome, not even as a memory. A guy from our college crew walked past me, holding popcorn. He grinned. "Oh, hey, Ava. You're still doing tech stuff." I forced a smile. "Yeah, I still help out sometimes." He chuckled. "Well, everyone's gotta have a hobby, right?" Then he passed the popcorn over my head to Lana. No offer to share, no eye contact, just dismissal. Like I was air. I stood there for what felt like hours. They began moving chairs for the reception, but when I reached for one, a girl grabbed it faster. "Sorry," she said. "We reserved this for crew." I looked at the tables. Every chair had a jacket, or a bag, or a drink already placed on it. Occupied. All of them. I asked one of the ushers, "Is there a spare seat somewhere?" He looked at me like I was asking for gold. "Maybe check the storage closet." And then he walked off. A storage closet. That's what I was worth. I stared down the hallway. Same one I used to mop. And I laughed. Quietly. Bitterly. Because somewhere deep down, I'd always known I didn't belong. Not to them, not to their circles, not to their glossy version of art. I was good enough to help, to fix things when they broke, to fill in lines when someone forgot, but never good enough to sit down. Never good enough to be seen. And as I leaned against that familiar wall, the one I once painted myself during a volunteer day, I remembered something my grandfather used to say. "If they won't save you a seat at the table, Ava, build your own damn table." He was rough, gruff, Texas-born and carved from granite, but he loved me like fire. And when he died, he left me something. Not a lot, but enough. Enough to build something. Or buy something. And I did. 2 years ago, I bought into the Lyric Star Theater, silently, strategically. When the old owner had medical debt, I stepped in as a private investor, through a trust, anonymous. He didn't care who I was, just that I had the funds to save his legacy. And I didn't want credit. I wanted a place. A voice. Control. Over time, my trust bought up more shares. Small stakes here, tiny votes there. Until I owned the majority, 85%. But I kept quiet, because revenge that speaks too soon loses its echo. Tonight was the last night of their lease. They hadn't read the new contract fine print. The screening was allowed, but the next event, only with my written permission, which they didn't have. And tomorrow morning the locks would change. As Lana twirled in the center of the room, wearing sequins I once stitched on her costume in college, I pulled out my phone, typed a message to the new operations manager I'd just hired. 3 words. "Proceed as planned." Then I tucked my phone away, walked toward the back exit, and paused. I turned once more, looked at the room, the glowing lights and the laughter, the arrogance. They thought the night was theirs. But in less than 24 hours, the stage they stood on would no longer exist for them. And me, I didn't need a chair anymore. Because I'd bought the entire theater, I walked home under the orange glow of streetlights. Savannah's humidity clung to my skin like silk and spite. I wasn't crying. I wasn't broken. I was planning. Tomorrow, they'd learn. You don't erase someone who holds the deed to your spotlight. You don't overlook a ghost who's been building the walls behind the scenes. They didn't save me a seat, but they forgot. I'd built the room. They just decorated it. Badly. And now, it was time to redecorate. From scratch. The next morning, I walked into the Lyric Star Theater not as a guest, not as a ghost, but as its owner. The sky was gray, and the scent of rain clung to the air like unfinished apologies. The kind Lana never gave me. I wore black, no makeup, no flourish, just a binder in one hand, and power in the other. The new operations manager, Julian, met me at the door. He was calm, precise, former Navy, and exactly the kind of man you wanted handling messy transitions. "Locks changed," he said with a nod, 10 minutes ago. I smiled, a small one. We walked through the lobby and every step echoed louder than the last. This was the place I used to vacuum at midnight, where I cried in the mop closet the night Lana told me she got accepted into the Directors Guild, and didn't mention me once. Now the air was mine. The silence belonged to me. We passed the ticket booth. The staff didn't recognize me, but they would soon. Inside the office, I laid out the paperwork, ownership transfer, lease expiration, cease and desist letters prepared in manila folders, one for each of them. I wasn't doing this out of pettiness. This was reclamation. Julian asked, "Want me to deliver the notices?" I shook my head. "No, I'll handle it." Some moments, you have to feel for yourself. Around noon, I heard it heels clicking down the hall, voices too loud to be courteous. Lana and her entourage. They burst in like they owned the place, which, ironically, they no longer did. She was laughing that fake, high-pitched laugh she used when she knew people were watching. Then she saw me, and the smile died on her lips like a candle in rain. "Ava," she said, blinking. I turned slowly. Let her absorb the image. Me, in her space, in control. "I didn't expect to see you," she said, glancing at Julian. "No," I replied. "You didn't." Behind her, I saw two other familiar faces, crew members from the film. People who had shared my ideas and turned them into punchlines. "You can't be here," Lana finally said, trying to sound firm. "This area is for staff only." Julian stepped forward. "Ms. Montgomery is the majority stakeholder and managing partner of this property." Silence. You could have heard the dust settle. What Lana blinked. I opened the binder, pulled out the documents, placed them gently on the reception desk. "This is your copy," I said, sliding it across to her. "Copy of what?" "Termination of your lease, effective immediately." Her lips parted, no sound. "The premiere was permitted under your original rental agreement," I continued. "But that agreement expired last night, this morning. The ownership transitioned, which means you're currently trespassing." One of her crew whispered, "Holy crap." I held her gaze, steady, unforgiving. "I tried, Lana," I said. "For years, I tried. I gave you my time, my talent, my loyalty." She opened her mouth to protest. I raised a hand. "You didn't forget me. You erased me. You used me when it was convenient, then tossed me aside when the lights hit your face." Her voice cracked. "Ava, that's not—" "But it is," I said, sharper now, "and the worst part, you didn't even save me a seat." I looked past her at the chairs they'd set up for today's crew brunch, a brunch they assumed they'd be hosting here. "Pack up," I said. "You have 30 minutes?" Lana's voice rose. "You can't do this. I made this place popular again." "No," I said quietly. "You made it petty. I'm here to rebuild it." She stormed forward, hand outstretched like she could still command the moment. But Julian stepped between us. "Ma'am, I need you to step back." She stared at him, then at me. And for the first time, I saw it. Not anger, not arrogance, but fear. Not because she lost a space, but because she realized I'd always been smarter, always been patient, always been planning. They packed in silence. I watched them carry their things out like ghosts fading from a stage. No one said goodbye. No one dared. After they left, I walked through the theater. Every seat, every row, mine. I climbed the stage, stood at the center, closed my eyes. I could still feel the heat of the premiere crowd, the laughter that wasn't for me. And then I whispered, "This time we rewrite the script." I spent the next few days calling local artists, people like me, overlooked, undervalued. I offered them workshops, free access, a platform. No politics, no clicks, no Lana-style gatekeeping, just raw, unfiltered art. The Lyric was no longer a stage for the chosen. It was a sanctuary for the silenced. The first event, a monologue night for performers who'd never had a speaking role. We sold out, standing room only, and I sat in the very front row, with my name on the chair, bold, unapologetic. And when the spotlight lit the stage, the first performer looked at me, smiled, and said, "Thank you, Ava." I didn't cry, but I did feel something settle, like an ache I'd carried for years had finally let go. They didn't save me a seat. So I built the theater, and now no one sits unless I say so. There's a sound only a full theater can make. It's not just clapping. It's not laughter or murmurs or the rustling of programs. It's breath held, then released. It's collective anticipation. It's power. And that night, I didn't just hear it, I owned it. 1 week after Lana's removal, the Lyric was reborn. The velvet curtains were steamed, the lights retuned, every broken bulb replaced, every tarnished plaque polished. I poured everything I had into that week: money, time, memory. I repainted the lobby myself soft gold, like sunrise. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about light, about truth finally getting a stage. Opening night wasn't for critics. It wasn't for film bros or indie darlings. It was for the forgotten. We called it the Unseen Showcase. 10 performers, all local, all once told, "You're not enough." I walked in through the back like I used to. But this time, every staff member greeted me by name. Not as a favor, but with respect. Julian handed me the schedule, then asked, "Want to sit in the crowd or backstage?" I smiled. "I'll sit front row." He nodded once, with that look only ex-military men can give like quiet armor. When the lights dimmed and the crowd hushed, I sat with my hands folded in my lap, not shaking, not waiting, just ready. The first act was a girl named Morgan, a spoken word piece about being silenced by her own mother. She cried, then roared. People clapped until their hands stung. A man performed an acoustic ballad about being evicted. A drag artist did a monologue about dignity. A kid who used to sweep the very floors I did read a poem about invisible labor. I felt seen by every story. By intermission, the room buzzed. No fake networking, no posturing. Just truth. Just art. Then I saw her, Lana. She walked in quietly, alone. No entourage this time. No cameras. Just her in a dark coat, eyes searching the room. And she saw me. Our eyes locked. She didn't walk over. She just nodded. I nodded back. Nothing more. She found a seat in the third row. The very row she once refused to let me sit in. How poetic. The final performer was a tall, soft-voiced man named Elijah. He stepped on stage, held the mic like it held him back, and said, "I was once told I wasn't good enough for this theater. Tonight, I'd like to thank the woman who made me believe I was." Then he pointed at me. The crowd turned. Applause rose slow at first, then rising like thunder. I stood up, just barely, placed a hand to my chest, smiled, and for the first time in years I felt full. After the showcase, people stayed, they mingled, they cried, they thanked me. Not because I gave them a seat, but because I gave them space. And that's the difference. Lana approached, hesitantly. She looked smaller somehow. "Hey," she said. "Hey." I saw the crowd, the lineup. It's impressive. "Thank you." She looked at the ground. "You really turned this place around." "No," I said softly. "I just removed the people holding it back." She flinched. I didn't gloat. She glanced around the lobby. "I was angry at first, but now I get it. I didn't see you. Not really. And that's on me." I tilted my head, and that's true. She looked up, surprised by my bluntness. "I'm not mad anymore, Lana," I continued. "But I'm also not offering you a place back." She nodded slowly. I figured. There was a pause. Then she whispered, "It's beautiful, what you've done here." "It's not mine," I said. "It's theirs now." She turned to go, stopped, then said, "For what it's worth, I hope you keep writing. You always had the better lines." That made me laugh. A short, sharp breath. Then she was gone. Just like that. No spotlight. No curtain call. Just exit stage left. And that felt right. Because the real stars were already here. On stage. In the crowd. Holding programs with trembling hands, knowing they finally mattered. That night, I stayed behind. Everyone left. The theater was empty again. I walked up onto the stage, looked out at the rows, the same rows that once ignored me, and I whispered not for anyone else, but for the girl I used to be. We made it, because she needed to hear it. She needed to know that even when they don't save you a seat, when they turn their backs, laugh behind your back, pass the popcorn over your head, you still matter. You still rise. You build, and sometimes you buy the whole damn theater, not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right. I turned off the lights one by one, not as a janitor, not as an assistant, as a woman who took the stage and never gave it back. It's strange how the thing that once broke you can become the foundation you build everything on. The lyric used to haunt me. Every squeaky seat, every backstage whisper, every echo of applause that was never meant for me. Now those echoes call me home. 6 months after reopening, the Lyric Star Theater is no longer just a venue, it's a movement. We host free showcases every Thursday. We fund underdog playwrights. We spotlight stories that would have been ignored, and we let them take center stage not just figuratively, but literally. My name isn't on the posters, that's on purpose, because it's not about me anymore. It's about the girl in the audience who never thought she'd speak, the janitor who writes poetry, the waitress who sings in the back alley after closing shift. I see them all, because I was all of them. We created a fund, the No Seat Left Behind initiative. If you want to come, you'll have a seat. Always. Every opening night begins the same, we dim the lights. Play a voiceover, soft, measured, mine. And it says, to those who were never chosen, to those who clapped in the dark, to those who were skipped, silenced, and made to stand tonight, this stage is yours. Every time I hear sniffles in the crowd, not from sadness but recognition, because pain is universal, but so is power. One night, a young girl named Mia approached me. She was 14, freckles, braces, too big of a backpack. She said, Ms. Montgomery, my classmates said I'll never make it, that I don't look like an actress. But when I saw your show, I thought, maybe I do. I crouched to her level, took her hand, and I said, darling, you don't need to look like an actress. You just need to look like you, because someone out there is waiting to hear your story. She cried. So did I. That night, she stood on stage and read a monologue. It was about a girl who wasn't picked for the school play, so she wrote her own script. The crowd gave her a standing ovation. Her parents sobbed in the third row. I found myself thinking of Lana. I hadn't heard from her since she left. She disappeared quietly, maybe gracefully. No more Instagram reels, no more premieres, just silence. But sometimes I wonder if she watches, if she hears the name Lyric and feels the twist in her stomach, not from hate, but from the weight of regret. And if she ever walked through those doors again, would I welcome her? I think I would, not to perform, but to listen. Because redemption doesn't always need a script. Sometimes it just needs a seat. And we have plenty of those now. Last month, we received a grant, enough to restore the upstairs balcony. We renamed it the Quiet Row, for those who just want to sit, feel, and remember. I go there sometimes, late at night, alone. I sit in the very last seat, the one where I once stood behind, forgotten, and I look at the stage. No one performing, no sound, just presence. And I let it sink in. What it means to reclaim something, to transform humiliation into legacy, to turn absence into architecture. I didn't need applause to prove I mattered. I just needed a place. And when no one gave it to me, I built it, piece by piece, brick by brick, with old wounds and new blueprints. I think back to the moment standing in that crowded room, no seat in sight, while people passed popcorn over my head like I was invisible. That moment carved a hole in me. But now, it's filled, not with revenge, not even justice, but purpose. A chair is just a chair unless someone decides you're not worth one. But a stage can't be taken away. A stage is voice, is presence, is permanence. They didn't save me a seat. So I built the whole damn theater, and I filled it with stories that will never be left out again. I leave the balcony, close the lights, lock the doors, and as I walk down the empty street, Savannah breathing soft against my shoulders, I whisper one last thing, not to them, not to Lana, not to the past, but to myself. You were never invisible. You were just early, and now it's your spotlight.